and supply for peer picking rises because the wages in peer picking is higher, right? And the last one is immigration. So movement from region to region, like you see a lot of mass migration in Europe. So you see over there that the supply of labor rises over there, right guys? Three factor causes shift in the labor supply curve, and labor demand curve is a derived curve, right? And it also shift, and it shifted also through three factors. What are those factors? These factors are the output prices, technological changes, and supply of other factors as well. Okay guys, now equilibrium in the labor market. So you know where I'm going. I'm going into the intersection of labor supply and labor demand. So till yet what we have established two facts, that the wages adjust to balance the supply and demand for labor. The wages equal to the value of marginal product of labor, right? So any event or any attempt to changes the supply or demand, labor must change the equilibrium wages and the value of marginal product of labor as well, right? So let's talk about what we are talking about here. It's like that. So this is the equilibrium right now. So what happened here? Shift in labor supply. So remember labor supply. What does it mean by labor supply? So immigration increases the number of workers willing to pick apple. So what will happen? So shift in supply or demand curve for labor causes equilibrium of the wages curve of the wages. So the equilibrium wages to change. So let's talk about this. We have the market for labor. We have supply of labor, demand of labor. What happened? Immigration causes supply of labor to increase or demand for labor for increase. Definitely supply to increase. Supply shift to the right because immigration. Now what happened? The equilibrium wage decreases, right? When equilibrium wage decreases, right? What happened? The quantity of labor increases. I mean, quantity of labor increases, and these are active working labors. It means employment increases. Although the wages reduces, but employment increases. Right, guys? Now, shift in labor supply result in surplus of labor, right? We have more workers now working for the same market. It puts downward pressure on the wages. Wages decreases. See? Wages decreases, supply of labor increases. So it makes more profitable to firm to hire more workers. Amazing. Right? It means the Apple producers, those who produce Apple, for them, it is easy for them to hire more workers, right? So it results in diminishing marginal product. It lowers the value of marginal product of labor, right? Plus, it gives a new equilibrium. So you can just, it's basically the explanation of all these steps here, right? So you will hire till wages is equal to value of marginal product of labor. You know that the equilibrium wage is like this. So if equilibrium is wages is lower, then it means the value of marginal product of labor is also lower. You have surplus in labor, labor has increased. You have decreased in equilibrium wages as well. You have higher employment as well, right? So this is just the explanation of all the shift in labor supply. It means what happens in words when there is increase in labor supply. And now shift in labor demand. So an increase in labor demand, what will happen? Labor demand. makes it profitable for the firms to hire more workers. What does it mean? Because demand for labor is a derived demand. It looks very weird that demand of labor high, it is extra cost for us. But remember, demand for labor is a derived curve. If demand of labor increases, it means the price of the output also increases. When the producer will see that the price of apple increases, he will demand more workers. When producer demand more workers, he would have to increase the wages as well. So this concept will put upward pressure on wages, which result in higher value of marginal product of labor, which resulted in MR to increase, right? And then we have a new equilibrium. So let's talk about this. So what happened? Demand for labor increases. Shift to the right. When shift to the right, it means we have a new equilibrium which is above. It means wages rises, right? And what happened? There is number of workers also rises. So let's see a very nice graphical description here, right? Increase in wages, increase in employment as well. So supply of workers or labor decrease the equilibrium wage, but increase the quantity of equilibrium labor, while the demand of labor not only increase, not only, why? Okay, amazing. So not only increase the equilibrium wage, but also increase the equilibrium labor as well. So that's the difference between supply of labor and demand of labor effect on the shift. That is the effect of shift in supply of labor curve and shift in demand for labor, right? So demand of labor not only increases the wages but also increases the employment, while the supply of shift in the supply of labor not only just decrease your your labor supply, your labor wages, but also the labor, not also, and also it increases the labor supply to upward, right guys? So this is just the difference is the wages. When there is a demand, wages higher. In both scenario, we see increase in employment, but only difference is with the supply. When the shift in supply, the equilibrium wages decreases. With the shift in demand for labor, the equilibrium wages increases. So we have a case study, a self-study case study. You can just go through, and it's not more than half page. You can read over there the productivity and the wages. So up till now, what we have discussed. So we have discussed the factor of production. Number one, labor. We discussed that. And number two is the capital. And then number three is the land. All right. So the other factor of productions, they are land and capital. So let's talk about this. The capital refers to the equipment and structures used to produce goods and services. So the economy's capital, which means the whole country's capital, represents the accumulation of goods produced in the past that are being used in the present to produce new goods and services, which means the life of those things that are used in production must be greater than 1 year, so that what you have used in previous previous production you are using now as well, right? So it means These represents the equipment that their life is more than 1 year, and they can be used to generate goods and services. So for our Apple firm, the capital includes ladder, trucks, tools, scissors, right? This kind of stuff. Their special, dress also is called, so that, the safety gloves and all those stuff, these are also called capital. So what is the land? So they're going to be prices for the land and capital. So if we talk about the prices, so number one is the purchase price and rental price. If your land and the tools and machinery and the capital is yours, you own that, we call this is the purchase price. If you rent that, that is called rental price. So the purchase price is what a person pays to own a factor of production indefinitely. This means ownership has been transferred. The rental price is what a person pays to use a factor of production for a limited period of time in which the ownership is not transferred. Now, what is the equilibrium in the market for land and capital? So we're talking about all those stuff that most of the businesses, they don't own the capital and land. They rent it, right? So we talk about the most of the businesses. So in that case, in our labor market, we talk about the wages. In labor market, we talk about the wages, and in here, we will talk about the rental price. The market price for using the land and capital is called rental price. So it means the rental price of the capital are determined by supply and demand. So the demand for land and capital is determined just like demand for labor, which is the derived demand. Their demand rises if the final product, here in the case of Apple, the producers, if price of Apple rises, then demand for capital and land also rises. People will be using more land as a rent to grow their Apple farms. People will be using more rented trucks and ladders and this kind of stuff. The firm increases the quantity hired until the value of factor of marginal product equals the factor price. So in this case, we are not using the wages, we are using the rental price. So this is market for land, right? So you see the supply of land is a little bit steep towards vertical because the supply of land is limited. You cannot increase or decrease the supply of land. And if you see the market for the capital, it is perfectly upward sloping and